We can go from no agent to an agent within a couple hours, hosted, deployed in production. I don't look at code anymore. I literally look at the outcome, and that's it. Start with the audience. Start like, what are you trying to do? What is the target audience of this agent? Kind of wrong assumption is that you will build a better orchestration layer than Microsoft 365 Copilot can.
Today's guest is Sébastien Levert, Principal Product Manager for Copilot Extensibility at Microsoft, where he focuses on the pro-code tools that let teams build deeper, more controlled agent inside Microsoft 365 Copilot. This episode looks at how agent development changes when it becomes real software, not just quick prototype. From deciding when low-code stops being enough to building shared ownership through source control and team workflows. The conversations show what it takes to create agents that scale. Sébastien also breaks down the practical benefits of pro-coding agents, including richer connections to third-party systems and the ability to ship with proper versioning, environments, and CI/CD. Now, let's dive in. Hello, Sébastien, and welcome to Mastering AI with the Experts. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, actually. It's good to have a little chat while we're having a very snowy day here in Montreal.
Yes, it is very snowy and very cold as well.
Yes.
Sébastien, you're a Principal Product Manager for Copilot Extensibility at Microsoft. Can you please start by briefly describing what it means, actually, and which part of extensibility of Copilot you're working on?
Yeah, so my team is the Copilot Extensibility and Development Platform for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So we are the team that is responsible for building the agent platform in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that means bringing all the capability that Copilot has by default and exposing them as capabilities in agents. When you're using, for example, the agent builder that is built into M365 Copilot, you're going to be able to add sites, add connectors, do code interpretation, do graphic art, and so on. All these capabilities are what our team is kind of exposing to that. So we have a strong partnership with the Copilot Studio team that is building the UX for building agents. So we have that. And my role specifically is for another audience that is bringing agents the same way, but built with different tools, really mainly for the developer audience or enterprise or LOB developers that wants to bring a little bit more control over the agents into M365 Copilot.
Great. So we're going to talk about pro-code tools today to extend Copilot. But just before we jump in, when you talk about agent extensibility, like in Microsoft 365 Copilot today, I know it's not clear for everyone what an agent is. How can you extend Copilot with agents? So what does that actually mean in concrete terms? And why should both businesses and technical leader should care about this right now?
I think agents are ways to automate business processes. You are an engineering team, and you want to be able to handle the tickets, the support things, and you want to automate some of them. You want to use AI to go deeper into your logs and infer some context from it. That's what really agents are. For us, we believe that why would you even care is because you want to use AI for more than just plugging into your productivity data. Yes, productivity data is amazing, and we can do really, really cool things with that. But what if you want to connect to your own third-party systems or to your own SaaS that you're using or to your own internal tools? So that's really why we think that extensibility to bring Copilot a little bit further, make it even more integrated to your business. So it becomes your de facto landing page. I go to Copilot, I click on my service ticket agent, and now I can do everything from there. I don't need to go to my system. Then I can cross-reference so many things around the house that it just makes sense. So that's really how I'm thinking about why they should care. Automate your business processes and make sure that everything fits within Copilot.
So it's not just about retrieving data, right? It's also acting on data, acting on third-party systems. You
Yeah.
were mentioning like organization using their own SaaS, using their own third-party systems. So it's bringing those workflow that was historically done by human being. Let's put it. Let's be
Yeah.
real, and having an agent go through them. So directly in M365 Copilot, right? Why? What's the advantage of doing it in Copilot versus having a standalone agent, even if it's built with the Copilot Studio, for instance, or the agent toolkit that we'll talk a bit more later?
I think the biggest advantage of bringing that to M365 Copilot and build what we call declarative agent with our basically really native M365 Copilot agents is the proximity to your productivity data. And that's where it unlocks so many things. Your productivity data, has so much potential that when you go to your SaaS, you're losing all of that context. But now you can cross-reference the email you got, the conversations in Teams you got with your third-party SaaS now, because then it can say, "Oh, I had a conversation with John yesterday about this ticket. He gave me a good way to respond. Can you craft me an answer for my service portal and then send that to the user requesting help?" And now it just bundles everything together, sends the update to the user, call it done. And I think that's really where having your productivity data mashed with your line of business and really like business critical data changes everything. So being in M365 Copilot really changes all of that. And sometimes you don't know where the data is coming from. You don't remember. I had a chat with Samuel yesterday. Was it a Teams message? Was it through a comment in a Word doc? Was it as an email? Like was it in an ADO ticket? Like in GitHub or in Azure? Like where was it? Well, in that case, Copilot doesn't care. It has access to all that productivity data and then can bring it to your third-party data. That's really where I think the big value is.
Yeah, this is really well described. Actually, fun fact: just before we connected to record this episode, I had to prepare for a demonstration for one of my customers, and I just didn't remember what we agreed should be demonstrated. So I asked Copilot, "Hey, can you tell me what's been agreed?" And look at my email, look at my recording, because we had a previous meeting that was transcribed and record, and it just lists what we agreed should be demoed on that day. And then I built one of my own agents that helped me use some templates of demos I did in the past and readapt it based on the customer context in industry, etc. So I've been able to call this agent afterward and getting him to start building a draft of the demo that we'll be presenting. So yeah, it's very powerful. I do agree.
Absolutely.
Agent creation in the Microsoft 365 Copilot world. I won't say Microsoft because we also have Azure Foundry, but in M365 Copilot is done through Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio, which was previously part of Virtual Agent, is often positioned as a low-code platform. You've been working a lot with the Pro-Code Agent Toolkit. So you're on the Pro-Code side of things. So what is it really, and what does it unlock that low-code alone won't be able to achieve? Like, especially when we're talking about scaling, control, engineering discipline. I know it's a totally different way of creating agent. So can you explain what's the difference and what's the advantage of it?
Absolutely. So I think it's more around like meeting the agent builders where they are. When I'm thinking about somebody as an information worker, probably I don't want to bring them into Visual Studio Code or even using like the Copilot CLI and bring them into a terminal. Even these days, actually, we're seeing more and more of these information workers being interested by that new way of working in an agentic way. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. But like
CLI being
the terminal, like literally being inside like a terminal window that is the GitHub Copilot version of that. So like building and so on. In our case, we want to meet the devs where they are, and they are in their dev tool. They are tasked to build agentic scenarios for information workers. So that the information workers can use corporate approved agents that are useful. Usually these agents are massive agents. Like, okay, we want to build that HR agent that covers all of the scenarios, that connects to all of our workday data, goes to our internal employee registry, goes to like our really simple, almost like access database, like vacation system. Like it wants to do all of that and into a coordinated single agent. We can ask makers, low code people to actually do that, and that is absolutely fine. But where we want to meet the devs is to meet them because they're probably building the API. They're probably building some of these systems. So we want to meet them where they are in Visual Studio Code, where they can build, publish, and use all the engineering practices that they're used to. One of them is like, hey, we're 6 of us working on the same agent. How do we do that? Well, we use source control. We use GitHub. We use Azure DevOps to store the code. We can do versioning of that code. We can do pull requests. We can review every single line that was changed to make sure that does it really bring value, or that was more like a refactor that didn't bring any value to the actual agent. We also have the ability to work 6 at a time on our own version of the agent. That are bringing more capabilities. I'm focused on this area. You're focused on this other area. So that's really kind of building that team of agent builders to come together. And the output of that, or the outcome of that, is that agent that then you can put automatically through your own continuous integration process. So you push to your source code, it gets built, automatically gets approved by an admin, then the admin automatically puts that into the store and becomes available to everybody. So while we do have the low code and no code ways of building these agents, we believe that there are key scenarios that do offer high value for enterprises that want to bring some of that. Something to think about also is the way we're thinking about M365 Copilot extensibility is that there's a lot that you leave behind, or I would say leave behind, that you don't have to think about. When you're building an agent as a dev today, you would one of your first reaction, especially if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, be, hey, I'm going to go to Foundry and I'm going to build an agent in Foundry. And there I'm going to have to build my own orchestrator. I'm going to have to build and manage my own models. I'm going to have to do my own function calling to third-party systems. I'm going to have to build my own retrieval augmented generation, or RAG system myself. I'm going to, and for some scenarios, that totally makes sense. But that's one of the complexity we remove entirely. We're a managed solution. Bring your systems, we're going to connect to them. Bring your instructions and your data sources that you want to RAG on top of, especially in the productivity space. We already have it. So we're just going to cross everything together. We're going to do your own function calling. We're going to do auth for you. We're going to do RAI, responsible AI on top of this. So if there's some dodgy answers coming back from your API or your third-party system, we're going to protect the user from that. All of that without you having to basically code anything crazy. You just bring your systems in a very standard way. Like we are using the standards of the industry either through an API or through an MCP server. Bring your systems, and then our M365 Copilot, the engine, will take care of that automatically. So it's like a time to market that is absolutely crazy. We can go from no agent to an agent within a couple hours, hosted, deployed in production, without any costs involved, because it's part of the license that you have either from Copilot Chat or from M365 Copilot. If you're not using any grounding data, you can use it on Copilot Chat by default. You don't even have to have the M365 Copilot license. You can just use Copilot Chat and automatically connect to your third-party systems. Absolutely, no extra charge than your M365 regular base license.
Is it the same architecture as the Copilot Studio low-code tool?
No, it's a different architecture. It's a lot more integrated within the M365 Copilot experience. When we're thinking about the agent builder capability, it's the same architecture as the agent builder capability. Just that the agent builder is really, really focused on the information worker. So it doesn't allow you to bring third-party systems. Doesn't allow you to have all of the settings that the devs can have. So they have more levers, more settings, more knobs that they can turn on. But in the end, they are the same architecture. When we go to Copilot Studio and build like a custom agent that connects to Dataverse, that connects to whatever other systems, that's another architecture that is more that's closer to the custom engine agents, which is you own everything, but we connect with you. So we make sure that the prompt gets sent to you. We do some checks and validation on top of that, but you're basically on your own. In that case, Copilot Studio handles all of the heavy lifting for you, so you don't have to build the orchestrator, you don't have to own the models and so on. But it's two different architectures.
Okay, and that's really good to know. So I will assume that if I start creating an agent in the low-code tool or in the pro-code tool, I can switch to the other experience, right? Because it's not exactly the same architecture.
So today you cannot. We have plans. We're thinking about that a lot on how we could expand that. So start in Agent Builder, export that to your ProDev tooling just to maybe expand on top of what an information worker has done. Then they hit limits like, okay, my tool cannot do more than that. Fine. Let's give it to the dev team and the dev team will take it further, or the other way around. You know what? My pro code thing in the end is only a couple of grounding sources, a very complex instruction field, but instruction is instructions. So maybe go back to Agent Builder and continue there. So we have plans around that, but nothing confirmed in the roadmap just yet.
Okay. Well, it might be in the plan. You were mentioning Agent Builder just for the benefit of our audience that might not know what Agent Builder is, specifically with the fact we've been renaming products from time to time. So Agent Builder is when an end user is creating a simple agent that is basically grounded on organizational data or on the web. So it's the lightweight experience that is available inside of M365 Copilot, right? So what
Exactly.
you're saying,
It's the embedded version of that. It's like you don't have to go to Copilot Studio. It's really you stay within Copilot to build an agent that runs inside Copilot.
so when does low code stop being enough? Like what are like clear signal, like organizational or operational that tell a business decision making that it's time to move to pro code? I like the fact you mentioned source control and multiple people working on agent, because that's one of the challenge I have often when you work in Copilot Studio. You can't go back if you made a modification to your prompt. If you didn't save it by yourself on OneNote or Notepad or whatever, you're kind of stuck with the new version. I'm not seeing how easily I can work in team on Copilot Studio right now. So I think those 2 points are really, really interesting. But what else? What are the clear signal a business leader should look at in deciding which way going to go?
I think there's also a matter of ownership. Like sometimes when you're going to build an agent, you're going to want the user to own it because he's the subject matter expert on that thing. Then fine. That is where I think low code, no code really makes sense. The user is the owner. Now, when you bring that to the world where you're building this entire HR complex agent, who's the owner of that? It's not John. It's the HR department that is owner of that. The same way when you build your finance system, it's not one of the devs that is the owner. It's the finance department that is owner of that, or IT, depending on how the organization is structured. So I think that is also something like if you are looking to have shared accountability on an agent, you should probably build it in a way that it's possible to have shared accountability, shared ownership. So that's definitely also one other thing that we're looking at. One extra, and I was thinking kind of one of the last one is you want to build for your organization. That's where I think low code, no code absolutely makes sense. If you're building for more than just your organization, a good example, we haven't built Researcher in Copilot Studio
Yeah.
because it needs to be acquirable by all the organizations are M365 Copilot license holders. So when you're building that, and there's a store for agents today that is available. So as a service organization that wants to build an agent that connects to their own SaaS, think ServiceNow.
Yeah.
ServiceNow has their own agent that lives inside M365 Copilot that has been built using our ProDev tooling, now connects to all the customers of ServiceNow in the world. So that's another way. Like if you want to distribute your app at large across organizations, you will want to have a solution that is built the way that the underlying system that it relies on, ServiceNow in that case, is built. ServiceNow is built by a team of devs and product manager and designers and scientists. You want to be able to package the agent the same way that the rest is also being made available. So that is definitely something that we're thinking about. Like the distribution channels allow for different approaches. When you're an agent builder, when you're an information worker, you want to distribute to your team or just around you, maybe to your department. But then if you want to make it a little bit broader, maybe you go to Copilot Studio where you can have maybe like a couple departments together. But if you want to full org wide or you want to do across organization, I think that's another good way to do that.
Yeah, I like you mentioned cross organization because I think, I mean, we're just at the beginning of this agentic AI wave, and I've seen a lot of organization investing heavily on building very cool agent and very powerful agent, and it might even become attractive for, let's say, I'm a retailer building an agent for my own organization to then say, hey, maybe I want to resell this on the marketplace as well. So it's not only like I'm building it for my own organization, right? It's that I can sell it afterward based on the work we did with our organization.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think that when you decide what type of agent you want, it's one of the criteria you need to. Okay, so that's going to drive which tool I want to have. And also, it can also be like, okay, do I want to live on the Copilot orchestrator, or do I want to have more levers and more knobs? And then I go one step further, which is okay, I'm going to host it in Azure, and I'm just going to connect it to Copilot rather than make it native to Copilot. So depending on the scenarios, depending on the proximity of the Microsoft 365 data you need, you're going to have to change your approach a little bit.
People often say you need to ship agents like software. So what does that actually look like in practice? Once you've decided to go pro code, what's the workflow like? Versioning, environment, CI/CD rollback, like et cetera, in the real world.
So there's I would say that there are two approaches that are transitioning from one to the next right now. So the way today or yesterday, that's what yesterday you were building agents. We have a VS Code extension that is in a VS extension that is called the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit, where you create your agent from there. It creates a bunch of JSON files. And these JSON files are the levers and knobs that you have on top of Copilot. So you create that, you configure that, you can use GitHub Copilot to help you expand, change the instructions. Really useful. GitHub Copilot to create instructions is a master at that because it knows your context, it knows what are the systems you're connecting with, and then it comes up with the instructions that will be the most effective for the agent you're building, which is actually really cool when you're building in an agentic way. and then you push that to your team. So we have ways to provision the agent directly to Microsoft 365 Copilot and share with a couple of your teammates to test. Then afterwards, you can broaden the scope to your department. Then you're like, okay, so I'm happy with this. Now let me put that into source control. So you add that to your source control, and then from there you can do a full CI/CD pipeline. We have CLI, so command line interfaces, little software, um, also built with the Agents Toolkit that allows you to script the deployment of these things. From okay, I want to build to my dev environment, so I'm going to use the dev environment. I'm going to build my agent, deploy to the dev environment, have my QA team to test it there. And I want to have my integration environment where I can now really have all of these third-party systems and make sure that you have it there, then we have it. And then after that, we're going to have the prod environment. So all of that through whatever tool you're using for that continuous integration, you're going to be able to build these pipelines that allow you to go from one to the other, can put on some approvals and so on. That is not specific to the agents toolkit or to building agents, but that's how software is being built. Now, one thing that we're seeing more and more is agents building software. So when you think about GitHub Copilot is an engine in itself that can reason over your code, that can reason over your spec, that can reason over anything and generate the actual code that needs to be built for this. So we're now coming with a set of different agentic experiences to help devs be really powerful. So one of them is agent skills that basically teach the agent a new skill, how to build an agent, how to build a declarative agent. So now it knows how to start, how to create, how to add the web search capability, how to add this. And then it knows, so now it becomes an expert at building declarative agents that live on top of Microsoft 365 Copilot. So we have that available now. Something we launched last Friday. Timing of the recording is really good. We launched last Friday the WorkIQ CLI, the WorkIQ MCP server. What is WorkIQ? I'm pretty sure you've heard about WorkIQ, but WorkIQ is basically the connective tissue that connects your like organizational data to your users. But if you're using that in an agentic way now, and that's what we see more and more, is people are connecting the WorkIQ superpower, it's called like this, inside their coding agent. So now you can ask questions like, last Friday, we had a meeting with the engineering team. We made decisions. Based on these decisions, can you update my agent based on the decisions that were made in the meeting? So now it's going to go look at the transcript, automatically get all of that back and say, oh, wait a second. We said that we wanted to ground on a new site in SharePoint. And it's going to add the site directly inside your SharePoint, inside your configuration that says, okay, now I want to ground on this on top of it. Or we want to integrate with a new third-party system. Okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to craft the API integration with our vacation system. It goes to your source code. Wait a second, I just found the reference to the API. I can craft what I need to do. Now, boom, I stitch it all together. So now we're bringing the work data, organizational data, inside the life of developers. Because that was always the missing piece. Like the spec is usually a Word doc lost somewhere in a chat. But now we can actually go and find it, bring it, reason over it, create code that respects the decisions and the design, call it done, and then ship it to the software. So those are the two things, like more like the experience UI based things. Then there's all this new agentic way of thinking about building software.
So I'll assume that it has affected or has changed the way you were coding, right? Like how do you
100%.
Yeah, how do you address developing nowadays? Like if you compare from 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
We can compare to 6 months ago. It's that fast right now. I think the thing that is mesmerizing for me. Like I'm a PM, but I'm coming from an engineering background. So I used to be like a dev lead, and I've done my load of coding in the past. I still do a lot of coding. But what I'm realizing is that I don't look at code anymore. I literally look at the outcome and that's it. Where I'm building the agent, I'm testing the agent. Does the work? I'm all fine.
So
So
in a sense, it's also almost as easy as using the low-code tool. Like
it
you're
is.
or
It's
even easier because you're chatting with an agent, GitHub Copilot, for instance, an
yeah,
agent that is creating the code for you, leveraging Agent Toolkit and all the tools
exactly.
available from Copilot Studio, but you don't have to worry about all the backend infrastructure, like you mentioned it, orchestration, etc.
Exactly. So it really creates that super smooth conversation that is very similar to, hey, let's get into a room and let's just figure out what we're going to build. Now, I'm not saying, and like that's where like I'm not saying don't look at the code. I'm saying that doing really, really rapid progress on an agent is really, 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 really interesting because then you move really, really quick. Then afterwards, you go back and you review. Okay, now I think I have something. Let's review that and let's use AI to review. Let's use AI to, okay, so this bit, I want to change it. Like this very specific 2 lines or 3 lines of instructions. Let's just change it in another way. I want to spin it differently. But in the end, if you're teaching your coding agent the right way to build and you're giving a good steer, you're kind of more like a teammate, like a peer programming session between you and the coding agent, we're realizing that the value we're getting out of this is absolutely stunning. And with the inclusion of WorkIQ in the agentic
Mhm.
loop for the devs, now it's not just like, oh, what did my boss say last week? I don't remember exactly. I'm going to figure it. No, now you can just say, my boss said something last week. Bring that context back and infuse it in the agent that I'm trying to build.
Yeah, WorkIQ give you access to all documents you have access to, previous meetings, been transcript, emails,
No,
SharePoint site if you grounded on it, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, actually that was one of the challenge I had building some of my agents. So I'm very happy to hear that it's releasing now.
yep, absolutely. It's now in public preview and it's available for all types of coding agents. So we talk a lot about GitHub Copilot, but put your favorite coding agent in there and you can actually talk to it.
Switching gear a bit, you're working a lot with customer and partners. So what's a common belief or piece of advice about building Copilot agents that you think is just wrong? Like,
Oh,
yeah.
that is a good question. So I think the first kind of wrong assumption is that you will build a better orchestration layer than Microsoft 365 Copilot can. So it's a little bit, the way I say it might be a little bit like, oh, we're better. And I don't think that's how I mean it. Is there's such a huge effort to make the orchestration in Microsoft 365 Copilot as good as possible for both us. You need to realize that all the agents we ship are agents that are built with our own tooling. We're building them all with declarative agents. So if you think our agents are performing and doing some really crazy things, think researcher, analyst, all the agent modes in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, well, your agent will live on the exact same platform. So I think that's the biggest things. Like building that is very critical. Now, I want to be very respectful of especially people that are doing more than M365 Copilot. Like let's say you're building an agent that needs to be available within M365, but also outside of M365 as a web on the website, on I don't know, by email, via SMS or whatsoever, then there are downsides to using our stack. which is our stack will not allow you to embed your agent elsewhere than M365 and all the collaterals like Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Word, Teams. If you are building for your employees or for employees, that's your main target, not the public. Or like, I really think that M365 Copilot should be your go-to solution. If you go outside of that, then there, I'm even if it's not as powerful of an orchestrator than M365 is, you need to go there. And that's where I think Copilot Studio plays a phenomenal role, because then they are available outside of that realm. And then you can have it also embedded inside M365 Copilot. But if you're really building for employees, no question asked, go all in with declarative agents and pro code tooling.
So that's a really interesting point. Copilot Studio, the low-code version, will let you deploy on customer service if you want on your website, inside of Power Apps, etc. From my understanding, and it makes sense because you mentioned it, the Pro Code version is running on the same architecture as M365 Copilot. So the Pro Code will not you deploy elsewhere, but the
Exactly.
low-code version will let you do it. But with some limitations that
Yeah.
the Pro Code doesn't have. Okay,
So
interesting.
you still have the ability to do pro code and go elsewhere. That is, but like, and as part of the agents toolkit, you have declarative agents you can create. You also have custom engine agents. But then that's really where you I don't know if you remember, maybe 10 years ago, where we had that pizza as a service infographics, where if you're ordering pizza, well, you don't own anything. The only thing you own is the pizza. But if you are baking the pizza at home and you need to do your own crust and you need to do everything, you own all of the layers of the stack. But we're back a little bit into this world. If you're in the declarative agent, you basically own a small slice of it, but the quality is still very great. You don't have to own all the pieces. But if you want to go complexity and because you need it, then you have the option to own more slices of that bar chart. And I think it's important to realize that there's a balance. You will want to be somewhere in that continuum from I'm building an agent builder as an information worker to I build an Azure Foundry and I own everything. And then I need to own deployments, runtime, and so on.
I love the analogy. It makes total sense. If you could give leader one piece of advice to avoid a painful re-architecture later, what would it be?
Start with the audience. Start like, what are you trying to do? What is the target audience of this agent? Is it 5 people, 100 people, 10,000 people, 200,000 people? Based on that, I think you're going to want to make different choices to deliver your agent. You will want to, like, how, especially in this wave of AI where we're talking about like disposable software, which like I'm building an agent, it's good for that event. Then afterwards, that event is gone.
Yeah.
It was super useful while it happened, and afterwards, it's just straight to the can. Well, that you need to think about like how durable you think the agent will be, and for how many people will this agent be. So I think that's what will trigger some of the decisions in there. I want to make my HR support department will start with an agent, and then at some point you're going to hit the limit. You're going to hit, like, we want somebody to talk to you. Then the agent will just respond with, okay, so here's the ticket that you need to go. I created a ticket for you in our HR system. But until that point, you might have just interact with an AI agent up to a certain point. But this is a big piece of software still. And you want to be able to kind of handle that through versioning. You want to be able to go back. You want to be able to roll back to a previous version, because then you realize, oh no, we broke everybody. You want to be able to go back to these things. So that's, I'm really thinking about these scenarios first. Also, I think there's in the world of AI, we need to think about, okay, is it workflow based? Is it so prescribed that it needs to follow this very specific set of steps? Or this is very open ended. Let AI figure out what needs to be done. And that is where I think we see more and more. Declarative agents are 100% AI driven. You can have some instructions that will guide the AI agent. Instructions are like instructions to children, right? They follow them sometimes. They follow them a majority of the time. So sometimes they're going to go off script. And that is expected at this point in the world of AI. So if you want to really go through a workflow, then maybe that's where you want to have a lot more control, either using low code with boxes in Copilot Studio, or you want to build your own orchestration so that way you can own every single step of the user journey. Well, that's the two things that I would love to kind of have people think before they go all out into in an M365 Copilot agent project.
Yeah, thank you. And I like your analogy about it. Comparing it to a child, I think I will reuse this one for next presentation. Make total sense. Like listens, but sometimes it doesn't.
Just want to do its own thing.
Yeah, it summarized my experience with my kids, I can tell you.
And that's why you have the thumbs down. And by the way, use them. We react to them. We know when things go bad, and we improve based on that. So use them. Tell us what happened, and we're gonna react to improve whatever component was broken there. So that's a signal back to the AI telling the AI that was bad.
Yeah, I'm telling all my customer, like, use it. We're like you said, we're very reactive. I think I had a conversation with Aaron Chappell, which is our CVP of commercial area, and he was explaining how we have this, feedback loop very tight between the customer and the engineering group. And in all my years doing Microsoft product, I've never seen a time where we're reacting, that fast to customer feedback, and that comes that goes from those thumbs up, thumbs down inside of Copilot Studio when we're talking about agents.
And please do thumbs up like when things go right. It's always like, you know how it is, like you read these
Yeah.
feedbacks always very negative. And that's okay, because that's one, like it's good. No news is good news. But sometimes like, oh, this was awesome. It's fun to read sometimes.
Sébastien, well, almost at the end of our time, so I have two questions left. Those are my signature questions. First one is, on a more personal note, what's the single AI habit or your workflow that's had the biggest impact on your own productivity?
So I would say that coming from a dev, like from that side of the house, if you have access to a coding agent, GitHub Copilot, Claude Code, whatsoever, I invite everybody that would potentially fear to go into that world and start using these tools, especially now with the availability of WorkIQ. It's connected to your productivity data now.
Mm-hmm.
And see how it might redefine your way of using agents. And I think that's going to boost your love for M365 Copilot, because then you're like, oh, wait a second. I've done that. I've seen that. Now I can go and create my own agent in Agent Builder that will replicate these scenarios. It's really, really interesting. So like one thing, it makes me very productive to live in the terminal, but for me, it's not like something that is stranger to me. I'm used to that scenario, but for people that are not used to that, it definitely feels like, oh my god, I'm in the Matrix. But get familiar with it. There's a lot of really cool innovation also happening in that space for personal productivity.
You know what? I'm not a dev at all. That was one of my biggest regrets in my career. And you just convinced me to start coding or vibe coding. I don't think I'll become a coder, but
I think everybody's vibe coding these days, and yeah, that's one of the things. Like, you have an idea, just express it, say it, and the number of magical things that will happen is quite phenomenal. And sometimes it's just a software for yourself, and that's absolutely fine. And sometimes it's just, hey, I want to. One of the things, like, I have all these pictures in that folder, and I want to rename them using that format. How do I do that? Open a coding agent. Just hit enter. It's going to do a bunch of magical scripting for you. You don't need to think about it, and it's going to do it. So it's always a little bit of a cool scenario. You can be afraid a little bit at the beginning. It can be a little scare, but honestly, magical.
Well, I will totally try it. And that brings me to my last question, actually, looking 10 years out. Now, we've seen how powerful those models have become in only 3 years. What do you think people still underestimate about how AI will change how we work or live? But in that case, for developers, what does it mean? I know a lot of people are scared of losing their job. Some people are just, worried about the outputs in terms of architecture, in terms of security, etc. But like going 10 years in the future, I will just imagine that all of this will improve. So what do you see the world look like in 10 years?
10 years is really, really far.
Yeah, I know.
But I think as individuals, as information worker, as desk workers, I think our daily work will be to drive and steer a team of agents that help you be more productive. That might become autonomous, might become your second brain, but you're still going to be in. I want to think that you're still going to be in control of everything that is happening from the AI space. So I think that's really what I'm seeing. You're gonna be the manager and mentor of all of these AI agents that will do things on your behalf. I want to believe that the human touch will stay. I want to believe that we're still going to meet as humans, and it's not going to be like just seven AI agents meeting and making decisions. Um, I want to believe that the human has a strong play in this world. I think that's why I love so much the brand that Microsoft represents and how we pitch AI with Copilot, where you're the pilot and there's a Copilot with you. Sometimes the Copilot can take over for some time, but at some point it's going to report back to you and say, "Hey, here's what I did. You think?" And I want to believe that in 10 years, it's going to be a lot of the work we're going to do will be to manage these folks and be more strategic in how we think and how we behave with the rest of our colleagues.
Yeah, that's how I see things as well. Um, Thank you so much for your time today,
Welcome.
Sébastien. I think leaders listening to this conversation will have a clear framework on making the decision of going low code or pro code or be both because yeah,
Actually, both.
we
Like, we want people to use both. It's just that there's an option. You have more golf club in your golf bag. I'm a golfer, so I went with that analogy. But yeah, you have more than just like a putter and 7 iron. You have more than that, and um, be curious, explore, try it, fail, change, go in Azure, come back to M365. But especially with AI, it's so quick to try
yeah.
things these days that I think you can make your mind very rapidly on what really suits you. And from there, you're going to be able to progress and deliver productivity enhancements, deliver value directly to your own business.
Thank you so much, Sébastien, for your time.
More than welcome. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.
Cheers.
Before we wrap up, a quick recap of the patterns that matter from my conversation with Sébastien. First, choosing the right agent architecture starts with audience and durability. Sébastien underscored that lightweight user owned agents work for narrow scenarios, but organization wide agents need shared ownership, source control, and stable environments. That shift determines whether you're stay in low code or move into pro code discipline. Second, declarative agents inside Microsoft 365 Copilot reduce complexity by removing the need to build your own orchestrator, authentication layer, or RAG pipeline. Sébastien emphasized that the same platform powering features like researchers or the built-in agents mode is the one developers use, which shortens time to value when productivity data is central to the workflow. Third, the coding process itself is changing as agents become more collaborators. With GitHub Copilot and WorkIQ pulling in meeting transcripts, specs, and organizational context, the work becomes steering and reviewing instead of writing every piece of code. Sébastien described it as pairing with an autonomous teammate that can update instructions, integrate systems, and adjust configurations based on real decisions made across the organization. And finally, distribution shapes the architectural choice. If an agent lives purely inside the employee experience, keeping it native to Microsoft 365 is simpler. If it must run on websites or customer-facing channels, Copilot Studio or custom hosting becomes the right path. If you found this episode useful, subscribe to Mastering AI with the Expert wherever you're watching the show, and please stop by at samuelboulanger.com for more practical ways to put AI to work. See ya!